Imagine this. You are dragged through narrow cobblestone streets under the cover of night. The iron cuffs on your wrists dig into your skin with every pull. People spit, throw refuse, and jeer as you pass. Ahead of you looms a heavy wooden door reinforced with bands of rusting iron. Behind it, your final destination, a medieval prison. The guard shoves you forward, and as the door creaks open, the world you knew vanishes. The light of the moon fades. The air turns cold. The stench is overwhelming. Human waste, rotting flesh, and mold so thick it clings to your throat. You stumble into the darkness, chains clattering around you, and in that moment, the truth sinks in. You won't survive here, not for long, but why? That's what we're about to uncover. But before we step through this prison door together, a quick request. If dark history and untold horrors intrigue you, hit that subscribe so you don't miss the next tale. And as you watch, share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's dive in. Today, when we think of prisons, we picture structured systems, cells, guards, uniforms, even a chance at reform. But in the Middle Ages, the word prison didn't mean serving time. It meant punishment, humiliation, and slow decay. Prisons were not designed for rehabilitation. They weren't even meant to hold criminals for long sentences. Instead, they were holding pens for the accused while they awaited trial, ransom, or execution. And those unlucky enough to be thrown inside were often already considered half dead. Medieval dungeons were cramped, windowless rooms, carved out beneath castles, fortresses, and city halls. Walls dripped with dampness. The floors were muddy, sometimes flooded with sewage. Torches provided dim light at best, and air circulation was so poor that people often suffocated in their own stench. Some cells were so small you couldn't lie down to sleep. Others were packed so tightly that people stood shoulder to shoulder, unable to sit without crushing one another. Now imagine stepping into such a place already weakened by wounds or hunger. Your chances of survival shrink with every passing hour. If the darkness and cold didn't kill you, disease surely would. Medieval prisons were breeding grounds for typhus, dysentery, cholera, and tuberculosis. The close quarters, combined with the absence of sanitation, made every prisoner a ticking time bomb of infection. There were no toilets, just corners of the cell or buckets, rarely emptied. Waste seeped into the floor, creating a rancid mixture of filth. Rats, lice, and fleas swarmed everywhere, spreading plague. It's no wonder medieval prisoners often died before their sentences could be carried out. In fact, prisons became so notorious for spreading deadly illnesses that one of them was nicknamed the Black Assize. In 1577, during court hearings at Oxford, prisoners infected with jail fever, a form of typhus, spread it to the judges and officials. Over 300 people died, not from crime, but from simply being in contact with prisoners. Now imagine you in that dungeon. Every cough, every bite of infested bread, every drop of water you drink could be your last. Survival also depended on food, or more precisely, your lack of it. Unlike today's systems where meals are guaranteed, in medieval prisons you had to pay for your food. If you were wealthy or had family who could bribe the guards, you might receive bread, meat, or even wine. But if you were poor or forgotten, you starved. Most prisoners relied on crusts of stale bread, rotting scraps, or thin gruel that barely sustained life. Water was often filthy, drawn from contaminated wells or collected rain. Many inmates resorted to drinking their own urine or gnawing on leather belts and shoes for some semblance of sustenance. And starvation was not accidental. It was a tool of control. The slower you weakened, the easier it was to break your will, to force confessions, or to make you pliable for execution. Picture yourself counting days not by the sun because you can't see it, but by the slow collapse of your body. How long before you beg for death? But starvation wasn't the only weapon. Medieval prisons were infamous for their torture chambers. Here, pain was not a side effect, it was the point. The dungeon was where justice was extracted not through evidence, but through screams. Interrogation methods were brutal. The rack, which stretched the body until bones snapped. The thumbscrew, which crushed fingers into pulp. The scavenger's daughter, an iron frame that compressed the body until blood poured from the nose and ears. And the most dreaded of all, the oubliette, a pit where prisoners were thrown, left in darkness, forgotten. Sometimes water filled the pit, forcing inmates to tread endlessly until exhaustion claimed them. Survival under such torment was rare. Confessions, true or false, were extracted simply to stop the agony. Even if you weren't tortured, you still heard it. The walls of medieval prisons were alive with the echoes of chains, screams, and sobbing. Imagine being trapped there, day and night, hearing human suffering without end. Could your mind survive even if your body did? Let's not forget, survival isn't just physical. Medieval prisons were designed to break the spirit. The endless darkness disoriented prisoners. Some never saw daylight for months, even years. The lack of human compassion, guards treating you like an animal, fellow prisoners turning violent over scraps, eroded your will to live. Prisoners described hallucinations, voices whispering in the dark, or the sensation of being buried alive. Many went mad long before they starved or were executed. Loneliness, fear, and despair were as lethal as any disease, and they worked hand in hand with the damp, the cold, and the hunger to crush all hope. Now, ask yourself, if your body somehow resisted infection and torture, how long before your mind betrayed you? Of course, not everyone died in medieval prisons. Some escaped with their lives, but survival came at a cost. Nobles and the wealthy sometimes fared better, bribing guards for better food, cleaner cells, or even a measure of comfort. Political prisoners who were valuable as bargaining chips could be kept alive intentionally, but even these survivors often left the prison broken. Disease-ridden, scarred, mentally unstable, they were shadows of their former selves. For the poor and forgotten, survival was nearly impossible. The truth is, medieval prisons were not designed to house people until justice was served. They were designed to end lives slowly and invisibly. So, why wouldn't you survive in a medieval prison? Because you were never meant to. Every element, the darkness, the filth, the hunger, the disease, the torture, wasn't an accident. It was the system. A place built to erase you, body and soul, and as you sit in your cell, listening to the scurrying of rats, the muffled screams from below, and the slow beat of your own heart in the silence, you realize one thing. This is not a sentence of years. It's a sentence of death. History hides some of its darkest truths in plain sight, and medieval prisons are just one reminder of how fragile human life was in the past. If you found yourself trapped in one, you wouldn't survive. But there are countless more forgotten horrors waiting to be uncovered. So, if you want to keep exploring the brutal, the strange, and the haunting stories history left behind, make sure to subscribe and join me for the next descent into the past, because the truth is often darker than legend.